When was the last time you had a deep conversation about dating, finding a job, reaching our goals, and all the other intricate areas that make up our 20s? Every episode, I talk about these topics with real young adults who are living and learning along with the rest of us. If you want to hear how your peers are dealing with and conquering these areas of life, tune in. This is Building the Blueprint. Del Laurie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Okay. My name is Del Laurie. I'm 21 years old. I go to Loyola Marymount University. I'm a junior there. I study international relations. I have moved around a little bit, but I'm in California right now. And just starting out in my professional life, and I'm constantly learning, and I've known Nick for a while now, so I'm excited to do this.
Thank you for coming on. Yeah, for those listening, I've known Del for about 6 years now, and he is one of my closest friends. It started out as a high school friendship that I didn't want to happen because I was trying to talk to somebody else and he was getting in the way. Long story, but I'm glad he got in the way because one of my best friends, excited to have you. We don't get to talk as much as we used to because we go to different colleges and you're always abroad, but I'm excited to have you on and have this conversation.
Thank you.
I want to start out talking about college a little bit. And one of the most common, fears that I see in college students, especially incoming college students, which is homesickness. And you've traveled a lot since you went off to college. You're not home very often. You're at LMU, you're in Croatia, or you're in Washington, D.C. over the summers. Do you deal with homesickness? And if so, how do you deal with it?
I would say I deal with homesickness in a unique way, in that I really haven't felt it much because I've naturally spent time away from my parents since I've been like 12 years old, whether that be 1, 2 weeks, a month or two. I really felt it for the first time actually when I went abroad to study in Croatia. But it wasn't like at the beginning when I was feeling like far away just from America and my parents. It was actually mostly towards the end in my 3rd month when I started feeling like I really miss home. But I don't know if I would necessarily characterize that as homesickness. I think it was more so a yearning just to be back in America. So I did miss everyone, but I knew it was coming. So I think it was just more so the length of time that I was in Europe, not necessarily like I get there and then I freak out because I feel like I'm really far away. I knew my place and I knew I was eventually going to go back home. And I think I was just ready for that.
Do you think that's why you don't get homesickness? Because there's so much to do at college?
Yes and no. I don't know necessarily about college. I just feel like I always know where I am. And especially now with phones and things, you can call anyone at any time. That you never really feel too far away from home. And say, even in Croatia, I'm surrounded by a bunch of American students. I've never been so isolated to the point that I feel like no one understands me. So I've always felt like pieces at home no matter where I go. So it's never been too big of an issue.
Okay, good. What advice do you have for living in a new place? Like when you first get to Washington, D.C., you first get to Croatia, what advice do you have for someone who's traveling abroad for the first time or doing a summer internship in a city they're not used to? How can they make the most of that city and feel a piece of home, like you were saying?
I would say understand what's around you. And I mean that very literally. Like wherever you're staying, understand, say, where the grocery store is, how to get places, how to meet people, and understand that it's completely natural to not know that at first. And then the more you keep discovering what's around you, the more you're naturally going to understand where you're at. And then that place in and of itself is going to feel more like home. And also know that you're never really far away from anyone. You can give anyone a call at any time. So never feel too worried because it just takes time to learn your surroundings. And once you understand that and see the same guy at the grocery store every day and learn how to get home every day, things are going to become a lot clearer.
What's the favorite place you've ever been to?
Favorite place I've ever been? It's a good question. I would say Probably Costa Rica. When we went together in 2021.
Not just you and me, as a big group.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Not just you and me.
Yeah, when we went, that was the most surreal experience. I think the Pacific coast there, with the lack of infrastructure that was on that coast and the natural beauty of the national parks there, was just something I'll never forget because it's just untouched beauty.
Yeah, I agree. It was like the middle of nowhere, but we did all the most fun things. It
Yeah.
was like, I don't know about you, and I'm curious your take on this too, but for me, it's more important who I'm going with than where I'm going. I'd rather go to like somewhere that's B on my to-go list, but with the people I really enjoy hanging out with, and like by myself to like my favorite location. What do you think about that? I am a people person, so that might be different. That might just be a me thing, but what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of disagree with that.
Okay.
I think you need to learn to do things on your own too. Say when I was abroad, I went to Brussels and Belgium by myself, and I had a bunch of, say, roadblocks getting there, traveling around the city. There's no one else to rely on but yourself, and that teaches you a lot. And then just to have those experiences for yourself, knowing that it was all you who did it, and you're the only one that's going to have those memories, it is a feeling that you can't really replicate. And then there's also always differences with my friends and my personal interests. Almost selfishly, you get to do whatever you want,
True.
and it's exactly what you want. And even just say when you're walking down the street by yourself, you're not saying these things out loud. You're like, oh, I really appreciate the architecture on that building. And that's only for you. That brings me a certain joy that not necessarily I couldn't get with my friends.
No offense taken.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Definitely a great maturing experience, like growing up. And you're not wrong. Like when you're by yourself, it's less Instagrammy, right? It's not like, oh, look how beautiful it is. I'm really enjoying that. And like, I don't need to tell anyone about that because I know it.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Going back to college and common college fears, what were some fears that you had about college going in, and how did those play out?
I actually think my main fear was what I was studying, because I was actually studying nothing at all because I was undecided liberal arts. And I was really worried about what I wanted to do with my career, where I wanted to go. And there was a lot of pressure to go into the business school because most of my friends were in business. So my dad does. It seems like every guy is doing business. And I knew,
I'm wearing a dress shirt right now. So.
yeah, I just knew it wasn't for me and I shouldn't force the issue. And I should just wait until it comes to me. But I was definitely drowning under that pressure a little bit because it felt like, almost in a way, I wasn't passionate about anything because I just hadn't found it yet. And I was taking various courses. And then sophomore year, I did figure it out. So that was great. But I would say that was my biggest worry.
Was figuring that out. Can you expand on that a little more and tell us what you want your career path to be and what advice you have to someone who's in your shoes that you used to be in, which was didn't know what you wanted to do?
Yeah. So right now, as I stated, I'm studying international relations, which is a less common major, but it's like the brother to political science, just with a more international skill. So that deals with diplomacy, international development, national security, intelligence, all those things. And so I had always had a passion for travel and a passion for learning about world politics, staring at maps, weird things like that. And I had known that I liked that, but I didn't know you could study that for a living. And then sophomore year, I just went for it because I was like, I'm not going to graduate on time if I wait another semester. And then I finally got some professional experience last summer in the field working in international development. And that was a great experience. I really loved it. And it just reinforced that I made the right choice. And so I would say for anyone that's struggling that I heard it a million times when I was a freshman, but you just got to wait for your time to come and wait for it to come to you. And even if it doesn't come in college, as long as you're getting a degree, that's what really matters. Because what you're mainly getting focused on is your ability to talk to people, your ability to learn new information. And what you studied in undergrad, most of the time doesn't reflect the job that you're going to get. And also, you do have a passion, it is out there, all of you guys who can't formulate it yet in your brain or make it tangible in the real world, there is a way to do it, and you just figure out how, even if you can't see it right now. You can forge your own path and not necessarily have to assign that to a major even.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of good points there. I think you're definitely right that unless you're doing a very technical major, like in the medical field, like what you study really doesn't apply. It's 90% you have to learn it on the job. Some advice I have for young college students that don't know what they want to do or have an idea of like, I want to get into business, but don't know what within business that you want to do is I think clubs are amazing. Like I know I wanted to be a financial analyst and I joined the finance investment group at Oregon and I hated it. I was like, okay, not doing that. And then I joined the consulting group and I was like, oh, I really like this. I could be a consultant. And then like this, it just tick off the different avenues that I was thinking about doing. So I do think it's a balance of be proactive and like test things out, but yeah, you don't need to rush it. It's not like a end all be all like, oh, I didn't figure out that finance is my passion. Like my life is ruined.
Yeah.
And you have time, like you have 2 years to figure it out. And I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. If you're going to be a doctor, definitely study it.
Definitely study.
That is not what I was.
I'm nervous about these ChatGPT doctors coming.
I know. And also what you said, definitely be proactive. I wasn't waiting around for it to come to me. I definitely had to work for it. I definitely had to search for it. So don't be lazy about it. It's better to do something with nothing than sit around and just hope it shows up at your door one day.
Yeah. What were some ways that you worked for it? Like, give me 1 or 2 examples of ways you were being proactive about it.
The main thing I was doing at LMU was just taking a bunch of different classes. Mm-hmm. So I took like a sociology class because I thought it would do something and it wasn't for me. I took a psychology class. That didn't work out for me. And especially with the liberal arts education, you're able to take a bunch of different classes. And then I took a few IR classes and it just felt like an instant click. But I think I was also doing a ton of research online, thinking about, say, like what certain majors can get you in your career, what that would look like, how that sounds to you, envisioning if that sounds fulfilling to you. And I kept looking and be like, oh, if I was a therapist, would I feel complete in my life? And then when I figure out the professions in the IR field, I knew it was right for me.
Did you take into consideration income at all?
I did.
How did you deal with that? Because I think I was talking with Xander recently, and we're talking about how he's going into music. And traditionally, a lot of people are nervous. You don't make any money in music, but that's his passion. And how do you deal with that? I don't know what the pay is in international relations, but I have to imagine it's not the same as finance and business. Like, how did you cope with that?
I think it definitely is a factor. And it would be negligent to not think about it. But I think it's about kind of personal preferences and thinking about what you want to sacrifice for your career. And if your happiness is not going to be affected by, say, making a much lower income as, say, a musician, then that really shouldn't matter to you. It's all about what you want. Income did matter to me, but not as much as, say, being a financial advisor. I'm not going to be making the same amount if I'm, say, a state officer working at the State Department versus whether I'm working in international development in Guatemala. It's just not going to be the same. But what I would get out of each job is different. So it just really depends on what you're working toward in life. And if you're working toward maybe taking a little bit more slack on the job to make more money, then you should go for that. Yeah. So it's just my preference.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure you have to do a lot of networking for IR, right? I mean, you have to be in DC a lot. How's that been? Has that been overwhelming? Has that been exciting? Has that been a bit of both?
It's definitely exciting. And it is overwhelming at times because DC is almost like its own circle where everything surrounds the federal government. And you really have to be a master of like how the government works, how all the different departments work. But in that, it's like its own family. And once it'll bring you in, it's a lot easier. Meaning, it feels like everyone knows everyone in DC. So once you meet one person, they can introduce you to a bunch of others. It's just a matter, at least for me right now, of literally being in DC so that I can meet these people. and really understand the different operations that go on there.
Do you think it's really important for anyone to be in the location that has the field that they want to do? Or is that specifically a politics and DC thing? If I want to be a financial advisor, should I spend my summers in New York? Is that something that really would help my chances?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a very important principle, is that you want to be in the center of where it's happening so that you can put yourself in the best position. Same thing with my dad. He is in finance and he was in Toronto for a while. And then he knew if he wanted to put himself in the best position, he had to work on Wall Street. So if you want to know what's going on and understand what's around you and not miss out, you have to be in the hub of it. So say also, for my dad as an example, he got an offer to work in Hong Kong and he said no because that might have helped him in the short term. But if you're away from the financial hub of the world in New York, she was going to miss out on a ton of opportunities, a ton of networking that she cannot get from a smaller base in Hong Kong.
How are you going about getting an internship this summer? That's a really stressful part for a lot of juniors right now that are thinking, okay, I need to get my summer internship. That's what everyone's doing. So far, I haven't gotten anything. Like, how do you go about that process? Have you gotten one yet? What steps are you taking?
Yeah. So right now, I have this offer that I'm thinking about from the place I interned at last year, and still deciding whether or not that's the right fit for me. They gave me some time to think about it and if that's where I want to go again. But it's also just about doing anything you can. So I think of like a no shame method, emailing whoever, contacting people out of the blue, just introducing myself, saying, this is who I am, this is what I've got. I'd love to know what you have available. And no response is never going to hurt you. It's just the fact that you tried. And then also it's really just troubleshooting, say going on LinkedIn, seeing what's there, scouring through items, emailing people that I've met previously, seeing who they know, and just ripping through that process. And really it's a numbers game.
I agree. I have two things to add to that. It's way easier to send an email because it hurts way less. If you don't get a response with the email, like it doesn't really hurt. Going up to someone at a networking event and they're like, get away from me, like that doesn't happen. But
Yeah.
it's easier online than in person.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say to young adults, when you put that student label on yourself, people are so much more receptive to talking to you. Like anytime I send a networking email, I always say, hey, I'm a student at the University of Oregon, right? It's always in the first sentence. And I think that helps 100% versus, hey, I'm a 40-year-old dude from Texas. Can I talk with you? Okay, I'm a student. I'm just looking to learn. Like our job is literally to learn. And for anyone out there that's like nervous about networking, like 100% email people, LinkedIn, and like always say that you're a student because it's way easier.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And with those emails, it's extremely high context. They have people asking them that probably on a weekly basis. People are always asking people underneath them who they know. They're going to see that. They're going to understand why they're receiving it. It's not going to feel like it's out of the blue. So even if you don't get a response, even if you get a no, in no case are they going to think, oh, why did that person send me that?
Yeah. In your emails, I'm curious to hear your approach because I have my whole own philosophy about like how I format my emails. What does an email from Del Laurie look like? Are you sending your full resume? Are you just introducing yourself? What does that kind of look like for someone who's maybe never written one of those before?
I definitely include certain specifics on who I'm sending it to and have some general things that I send it or say to everyone. Like you said, I'm a student. I go to LNU. I'm studying exactly what your field is. Say I sent this message to this guy who works at the San Francisco Consulate of Canada in San Francisco. And I was like, hey, I'm Del Laurie. I'm a junior studying international relations. I have a passion for diplomacy. That's the field I work in, or I want to work in, and I know you work in that. Why would I be a good fit in 2 sentences? I'm a Canadian citizen. I live in the area, and you're doing exactly what I want to do. So I'd love to see if you have any positions. They know the reason, they know who I am, and they have a certain amount of qualifications. And if they give traction, they say, hey, We love your resume. We love a cover letter. We love whatever. But you want to keep it concise to a certain point because they don't know who you are and they're probably not giving you much attention. And if you overdo it, they're just going to look past it. So at a certain point, you want to keep it concise, but get their attention in certain sentences.
And do you add your resume and a cover letter to that?
No, not
So
on
then you just send that message and you wait to see if they ask for it.
Yeah. I feel like if you're sending a resume, it looks too almost like you do that to everyone,
Yeah.
or you might look too needy. They might not feel as important. So that's why I hold off on that.
And what about subject line? Do you just say like Del Lori interested in?
My subject line is typically internship inquiry
Okay, cool.
for the subject line.
I'm definitely not a subject crow. I usually say Nick Batchelder and I'll use like the line and then I'll say something in that sense, 5-minute coffee call or chat, like referring from your friend blank. Like a lot of my networking is definitely referrals. When I started out and like when I'm reaching out to a new industry in which I have no contacts in, it's definitely all like LinkedIn and cold messaging. But the second I get in the door, I always follow up with someone and I go, hey, do you have any, friends or colleagues that you think would be beneficial for me to talk to? Because my hit rate on that is 90% and my hit rate on cold is 10%. Right?
Exactly.
So it definitely takes time. And I think your message is great. It's concise. It's to the point. There's no filler. You're not being needy. I think a big thing too, I'll add to that is like people aren't very careful with their wording. Like I would love to talk to you. Please, I'm free anytime. Like phrases like that are really needy and don't come off very strong. Like, especially if you're saying I'm free anytime. Like to me, if I was a professional and you reach out to me, like I would never respond to you. Cause like, why are you free anytime? Like I want you to be like in clubs and doing things and be with friends and doing professional things. So like, I always say, if you're open to chatting, I can send some times that work for me, things like that. But yeah, I definitely focus on like referrals is definitely my biggest thing. Like I'll talk to you and then I'll wait till the next day and then I'll send you a follow-up message. Thanks for chatting with me. Learned a lot. If you have any colleagues or friends that you think I should connect with, I would appreciate the referral.
Yeah, that's really almost like a cheat code. It's just straight up asking the people that you know and you've already just talked with and met, just do you have anyone that would be able to connect me with? And once again, a no is never going to hurt you. You need to at least try, and it's never personal. And they, like I said, they completely understand why you're doing it. So there's never any shame or anything like that.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to use people in your life, like friends and family. Like, don't be afraid to ask your parents or your mom or your dad, like, hey, do you have any colleagues that you could connect me with? Or ask your friends. Like, if you would ask me, like, hey, Nick, can I talk to some business people that you know? I would, of course, say yes. And I'm sure if I asked you to talk to some international relations people, you would say yes. Right. And so I think a lot of people are scared of the nepotism word or like the friends and family word, like, because it's like keep personal and professional separate, which is generally true. But I think in this setting, like, don't be afraid to ask favors for that. Like, especially when you're brand new and you're not confident, you don't really know what you're doing. Having your first couple conversations being with your dad's buddy, who like is going to be super cool, or your uncle who's like does a career like maybe you don't even care about, but like, it's practice. For me, at least, that was really helpful in getting my feet grounded and feeling comfortable.
Yeah. And I think that people want to help.
People want to help.
It makes them feel important. It makes them feel like they're helping up and comers. Even if they just want to talk to you about what they're doing, people would love to share that information because they're also proud of what they've done. So there's nothing, it's really a win-win.
Yeah, 100%. And when people invest in you, they want to see you succeed, because when they see you succeed, it feels like they're succeeding. Because, oh, I gave that kid advice and now he's crushing it. That was partially me.
Yeah.
So get them to invest in you, because then they're going to help you grow because they're like invested in your success.
Exactly.
100%. I want to wrap up our college conversation before we move on. And I want to hear, if you could go back to freshman year and restart, what are some of the things that you would do differently?
That's a good question. But I really don't think I would do anything differently.
Really?
Because I've been through that new environment a couple of times already in my life. So I feel like I was prepared for it. And the decisions I made, I think I would still do to this day. And I have confidence in who I was, and maybe 20 years from now, I might be like, oh, I might change this. But I did what I could with my circumstances, and I don't regret really any big decisions that I made freshman year.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I think it's partially because you have that sense of it made you who you was, or you did the best with the information you had.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing I look back on and, oh, I really should have done this, or, oh, I wish I did this more. I did what I could with what I had, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah. Okay, let me reverse it on you then. What's one quick piece of advice you would give a freshman now with all the college experience that you have under your belt?
I would say don't be ashamed of who you are, and don't feel weird for being in a new environment, because especially as a freshman, everyone's in a new environment. Everyone's trying to make friends. Everyone's trying to join clubs. Everyone's trying to understand their classes. So you're definitely not alone in that. And I think it's almost unfair to put yourself in that category of being like, oh, am I not doing enough? Am I not doing what these other kids are doing? You just got to do what feels right to you and what feels natural. And of course, you got to work for certain things. You really got to put yourself out there, introduce yourself to new people. But it's all habits. And once you get those habits down, you're going to feel a lot more confident in what you're doing. If you see kids doing something that you're not, you're going to be like, I know that's not for me, and that's okay. And then you're just going to keep on doing what is best for you, not what is best for someone else that you might think you want to be doing.
Yeah. And I think the key thing you said there was no one knows what they're doing. There's this perception of, oh, if I didn't crush high school, these people are ahead of me, or like they know what they're doing. No one knows what they're doing. Like maybe if they had 4 older siblings and they like visited them at college all the time, they have a little more idea of what they're doing. But like generally speaking, everyone's new, everyone's nervous, right? Nobody knows what they're doing. If you're feeling like under par about going to the situation, like understand like you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Everyone's feeling that way.
Yeah. You're, say, not as worried about feeling left out. You still got to work for what you want. So you do have to put yourself out there. You do have to take certain risks. You do have to put yourself in certain awkward situations. And all because necessarily those things don't go your way, or it wasn't as good as you thought it would be. You know you tried, and you know you would make that decision again. And that's the key. You weren't just sitting in your room thinking, oh, what if I did this? Always just try it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah. Speaking of you have to push yourself and do hard things, you are one of the most disciplined people that I know, right? Whether that's going to the gym or what you eat or how you spend your time or saying no to certain things. Like, how are you so disciplined? What habits and systems do you think make you so disciplined?
That's a good question. I was actually thinking about it today, and I guess to flex a little bit, I remember in high school for 2 years, so probably say 700 days, I took only cold showers. And I think in that time period, I probably took 5 hot showers
Wow.
in, say, 700 days. And that was probably just when I was sick, because then I think it's a detriment to take a cold shower. And I think when I think back on that time, or now, the systems that I have in place, I think it's all about understanding how habits work and then understanding how your environment works. And one of my favorite ever quotes that I think to myself is that your environment trumps your willpower. So once you understand that your willpower is not the highest form of thought in the land, which might sound really weird to a lot of people, you can get things done a lot easier, because what you can do is change your environment. Say with the cold showers, once I had 15 days in a row, say, of cold showers, I now know that taking a hot shower is not an option, nor is it something I want to do, because I'm just so used to it that I stopped thinking that I was doing it. Say I only check Instagram once every 2 days, which I currently do. That's not something I think about because it's just so natural to me. So it's very hard at first, but once it becomes a natural system, you don't have those desires to do that every day. So most people say an hour goes by and they feel like a need to check Instagram. That desire is just not even there. And it's also mostly about just, you got to understand why you're doing certain things. So every time I was like, oh, maybe this time I'll break it and take a hot shower, I'll think about really why I'm taking the cold shower. and all the reasons for me doing that. And then I just realized I actually want to take a cold shower. Like, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but I also enjoy it. And yeah, like it's nice to check Instagram every hour, but really that's better or that's worse off for me. And I just don't enjoy that. So you're also like finding passion within the discipline. And I think that's what works so well for me. And then understanding just how the systems work and why you resort to bad habits. So,
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think especially too, in order to get to that place where you have the willpower to say like, oh no, even though there's the desire, like I don't want that. And to be able to do that, like you're 100% right. Like the environment has to be really good to get to that place at all. And I think the key part about the environment is it eliminates cues. Do you know atomic habits?
I watched the summary.
Okay, yeah. But like the summary is you have the cue. The first part of doing something good or bad is like you have the cue. And so like the cue might be like, oh, you jump on your bed. And then your first thought is, okay, let me open Instagram. You make it so it's maybe you don't jump on your bed until it's actually time for bed. So then you're on Instagram a little less. Or if you want to watch TV, it's like you sit on the couch. It's like you reach for the remote, but then the remote's in the kitchen. So you have to get up and go to the kitchen, get it. And you're like, that's too much work. Like, I'm not going to do that. So there's a lot of little ways, like you're saying, to tweak your environment so the cues that lead to the bad habit are harder. Like James Clear calls it in the book, the 20-second rule, which I think is awesome. Make something 20 seconds harder if it's a bad habit and you want to stop doing it, and make something 20 seconds easier if it's a good habit. For me, like waking up in the morning is the hardest thing. I don't know what it is, but like once I'm up, I'm fine. But like that first 30 seconds, I like hate life. I like can't do it. But like laying my clothes out makes it a little easier. Or I'll throw my phone across the room. Like I'll charge it during the day and then I'll throw my phone in the corner of the room. And then I have to get out of bed to turn it off. And then once I'm up, I'm fine. But it's like getting out of bed is a hard part for me. I 100% agree. Like ways like that definitely help with discipline.
Yeah. I also am very mentally competitive with myself, and I have certain thought processes that make these habits really stick, such as like every time I almost do it like a math equation where I'm like, every time I stick to a habit and I don't break it, that's leading one step toward like a better version of myself or one step happier. Even on my phone lock screen, it says you gotta fight for your happiness. And I think that's because that happiness is not easy or else everyone would have it. And every time I read that, it trumps whatever I want to do in the moment. It's gotta become a passion. If you really don't want it or you don't see how it fits you, it's gonna be a lot harder. But the second you like really enjoy what you're doing and you become in love with all the habits that you're doing, it's not a challenge anymore. It's like, I'm doing this thing because I want to. So once again, changing that mindset from this is so hard to I'm really enjoying this because I'm becoming a better person because of it.
Yeah. And this might be a hot take, but I think reaching your goals is a habit you can develop.
Yeah, I agree.
The more goals you reach, the easier it is to reach more goals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the snowball effect.
Yeah.
And then you can make your goals bigger and bigger. So the way I like to structure my goals is I have, say, daily goals, I have monthly goals, I have yearly goals, and then you have 10-year goals. And then all those things add up to reach the 10-year goals and see where you want to be as a person. And it's also like what you can learn from, say, like David Blaine is like, if you think about how you're going to accomplish the 10-year goals, you're going to feel like you can never do it. But if you think about how you can accomplish the daily goal and what you can do right now, it's going to feel way easier. So you just take it step by step.
Yeah, 100% agree. Do you think New Year's resolutions work?
Yes.
Yes. Elaborate. Because personally, I'll expand on this after you go, but I can't think of a time that I ever completed more than 4 of my 12 New Year's resolutions.
So what I started in 2024 is that my first New Year's resolution was to read my resolutions every single day. And I've done that ever since, and I just revised it for 2025. And so what I have on my phone now is, as soon as I open it, I have a widget in the top left of my notes, and it just says 2025 resolutions, and I read it every day. And then I kick myself in the foot, say if I miss it, I'm human, it happens. But that stamps it into your brain. You cannot forget, even if you don't say accomplish it, you know you have to do it. And once again, that just forms a habit. Because if you read something 300 times in a year, you're going to end up doing it, or you're going to be thinking about how you can achieve it and all these things. So it's about how you go about the New Year's resolution. It says, like, go to the gym at least 5 times a week. If I miss a day of the gym in a day, I'm still very much aware of it, that I have to go to the gym. I don't completely forget about it and then get to say June and like completely forget what my resolutions are.
You don't get to do the out of sight, out of mind thing. Like it's on
Exactly.
sight. So it's like you have to deal with it.
Yeah, and that goes back to atomic habits. You need to shape your environment to have it be around you, so you start feeling like this is who you are. And like I said, even just checking the resolutions is a habit. But I've made it so easy. All I have to do is open my phone.
Yeah. I don't disagree. And I am doing something like that now that works way better for me. I have my list of 15 things, but I've changed it where I don't view them as goals anymore. I view them as things that are true. It's like my 15 manifestations. I don't say I run $1 million business by the end of the year. I say I founded a business that makes millions of dollars, or like I wrote a New York Times bestseller. For me, I do the same thing now where it's, I'll either think about it, meditate on it, or write it down every day or every other day. And for me, the active tense helps a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I do think that's just another strategy on how to achieve your goals. And I don't know if it was your book or another book I read, but there was this actor who was like, he just moved to Hollywood with no money. And then he's, I'm going to be world famous by the time I'm, say, 30. And then he was, just because he thought it every day and your mindset becomes your reality. I'd say do that, especially along with your goals. I think they're two slightly different things that can very much complement each other.
Yeah. You're talking about Jim Carrey. Yeah. In the book, I'd talk about how he was struggling to even get work and he wrote himself a $10 million check for acting services rendered for 10 years in the future. And then I think a year before that check was due, he got paid $10 million for an acting role, which is really cool. And yeah, so many people do that. Steve Harvey does that. Conor McGregor does that. Whether you like those figures or not, I know some of them are controversial. It is a powerful tool to help you along with having the daily goals. I think part of the reason too that the manifestation aspect works well for me is I'm actively doing all these things to reach those goals anyway. So I think the issue for me was like, I'm forgetting about the goals that I'm setting. Like one of my goals was like to have 10 minutes of no screen time, but like set to just like sit and think. And I literally forgot about that until November. And I think if I would have been, like you said, thinking about it more often, I think I would have done it. But anyway, just 2 good tips for anyone listening to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your biggest goal in life right now? What's your 10-year goal?
My 10-year goal?
If you don't mind sharing one of your 10-year goals. Or let me rephrase the question. What goal are you most excited about right now?
My one I'm most excited about right now is being fluent in another language. I think that's something I've always dreamed about and has always been one of the things that excites me in my heart the most, to be able to do something like that. And especially as I've come into studying IR, it's become not just a passion, but something that would very much help me in my professional career. And just to be able to learn something that difficult and say I did that, and then also what that would bring me in my literal life, I think the two just go along so well with each other. That would be such a big goal that I would love to achieve.
Is the language Italian?
No.
What is it?
Honestly, my goal is to be fluent in 3 languages, including English.
Are you fluent? You're not fluent in Italian.
No. I'm not ground zero right now.
Okay, but do you know?
This is why it's a 10-year goal.
Do you know what language?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, which one?
The first one would be French.
Really? Why?
I took French from 6th grade to 9th grade for 4 years, and I retained very little. I still know a tiny amount, but I'm ashamed of what I know. And I think that French just always has a passion in my heart, and it's the language I connect the most with. So that's what I want to start out with, as well as the global speakers, people that speak it. It's something like 250 million people. So you also got to think logistically about these things. That's why I would love to learn Italian as an Italian American, but unfortunately, only like 30 million people speak it. Putting that on my resume wouldn't help me as much, nor would I get as much use out of it
It's French.
as French.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And just going off of that, the third would be Spanish, which I hope to learn in the Peace Corps, which is a whole different conversation. But that would almost be a guarantee if I were to go to, say, a Latin American country.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll save the Peace Corps conversation for next time. Del, thank you for coming on. We have a closing tradition on this podcast that comes directly from my favorite show, The Diary of a CEO, in which the last guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing whom they're leaving a question for. And the question that has been left for you is, if you're overwhelmed, what is your go-to safe space to escape and why?
Good question. If I'm overwhelmed to space, I would say surrounding myself with my guy friends, especially with the people I've surrounded myself with now in my circle, whether that be literally addressing the issue. So, say, talking with them about what I'm overwhelmed about, I could do that. Or if I just wanted to relax and feel more calmed down through just talking and being around people and feeling that comfort of just being around my friends, that's what I would do. Because whoever it be, whoever's in my life, I know they would be very good at helping me get through that and would really help cool me down. So that's where I would go.
Del, thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for having me.